Remember when a night at the pub wasn't about cocktails, tapas, or fancy food? When the real stars were the strange, legendary snacks sitting on the bar, some delicious, some horrifying, all unforgettable. It was a simpler time, wasn't it? Before gastropubs and artisan Scotch eggs, the peak of culinary delight came in a crinkly packet or a dusty jar. It was less about fine dining and more about pure, unadulterated, salty satisfaction. You'd have your pint, your chat, and a little something to nibble on that probably hadn't seen daylight in a week. Today, we were counting down 16 forgotten pub classics, and one of them once fed half of Britain during a war. Let's dive in. When the air was thick with the scent of stale ale and history, not truffle oil and rosemary juice. Today, we're taking a trip back to the sticky-carpeted havens of yesteryear to celebrate the unsung heroes of British drinking culture, the old pub snacks, those wonderfully unpretentious, often questionable nibbles that once graced every bar in the land. Our journey begins with an icon, a true test of a punter's mettle, the pickled egg. Ah, yes. Those ghostly white orbs, suspended in a jar of murky, vinegary liquid like strange, spectral planets in a forgotten galaxy. They'd sit there on the bar top, silently judging your pint choice, daring you to try one. You never quite knew how long they'd been there. Days, weeks, possibly since the last World Cup. The pickled egg started life not as a dare, but as a Victorian working-class staple. A simple, cheap source of protein, preserved to last. It was honest-to-goodness fuel for the factory workers and dockers of the industrial age. Then, almost overnight, it vanished. Health and safety, probably. But like all great British traditions, it couldn't be kept down. It has returned, phoenix-like, from the vinegary depths. Only now it's rebranded. You'll find it in some trendy East London spot, served on a slate tile with a sprig of dill and called something like a heritage protein sphere. And it'll cost you about 5 times the price. The sheer audacity. Before we move on, smash that like button if you've ever eaten one of these, willingly or on a dare. It helps the channel massively. Next up, a snack that separates the Londoners from, well, everyone else. Jellied eels. The very name conjures a wibbly-wobbly image that's either deeply comforting or slightly horrifying, with very little room in between. This was the pride of the old East End, a dish born from the bounty of a once teeming River Thames. The process was simple. Chop up an eel, boil it in a spiced stock, and let it cool. The natural gelatin from the eel would set the whole thing into a shimmering, savory jelly. It might sound like a culinary nightmare to some, but for generations of Londoners, this was home. It was so essential to the city's identity that during the Blitz in World War II, when bombs rained down on the capital, the eel and pie shops stayed open. They were a beacon of defiant normality, serving up wobbly cubes of history to a city under siege. You can't get more British than that. From the slippery to the shatteringly crunchy, we arrive at pork scratchings. Now, I'm not talking about those fluffy, airy morsels you get in a foil packet these days. Oh no. I mean the real deal. The old-school, tooth-threatening bricks of fried pig skin, often with a bit of hair still attached for, authenticity. These were scratching so hard you could have used them to knock in a nail. Dentists in the Midlands, the spiritual home of the scratching, used to report a spike in cracked molars over the weekend. You'd hear a crack across the pub, and you wouldn't know if someone had just dropped their pint or started on the scratchings. It was a working-class snack, a byproduct of the pork industry, ensuring nothing went to waste. And now? You've guessed it. It's gone gastro. Served in a little copper pot with applesauce on the side, sprinkled with microgreens. It's gone from a dental hazard to a delicacy. What a world. And what goes better with pork skin than more pork? Let's talk about the pork pie. Not just any pork pie, but the classic unrefrigerated pub pork pie. A magnificent, self-contained meal. It was a fortress of hot water crust pastry, golden and sturdy, protecting a dense filling of salty, chopped pork. And suspended between the meat and the pastry was that mysterious, wobbly jelly, a thing of both beauty and suspicion. What was it? Where did it come from? Nobody knew, nobody asked, you just ate it. In Victorian times, these pies were so beloved, so integral to life, that prize-winning pies from Melton Mowbray were actually insured for their journey down to London. Imagine that, taking out an insurance policy on a piece of pastry and pork. But as the years went on, fears about food hygiene and the decline of the traditional butcher slowly chipped away at the countertop pie tradition. A sad loss for pub-goers everywhere. Now for a snack with a secret identity, the Scotch egg. A boiled egg, swaddled in sausage meat, coated in breadcrumbs, and deep-fried to golden perfection. It sounds quintessentially British, and the name points firmly north of the border. But here's the twist. It isn't Scottish at all, not even a little bit. It was invented in 1738 by the London department store Fortnum and Mason as a convenient portable snack for wealthy coaching travelers heading out of the city. So it started life as posh picnic food. But over the centuries, it trickled down the social ladder, becoming a humble pub and lunchbox staple. And then, in the bizarre year of 2020, it became a political football, the center of a national debate about what constituted a substantial meal. From high society to a parliamentary punchline. The Scotch egg has truly had a remarkable journey. Finally, we dip our toes, or rather a pin, into the sea. Let's talk about whelks. These chewy, rubbery sea snails, often bobbing alongside the pickled eggs in a jar of vinegar, were once a titan of the British snack scene. Before fish and chips became the nation's sweetheart, whelks were the go-to seaside treat, sold from carts on every promenade. You'd be given a little pot of them, doused in vinegar, and a pin. The pin was your tool, your key to unlocking the spiral-shelled treasure within. It was a ritual, a fight with your food. The texture was an acquired taste. Chewy doesn't quite cover it, and yet we loved them. In fact, in the Victorian era, doctors would sometimes prescribe a dose of whelks for indigestion. A chewy, vinegary sea snail to settle your stomach. Simpler times, eh? We are halfway through Britain's forgotten pub grub. But part 2 has the strangest entries of all, including one snack invented by marketers in the 1960s that every pub swore was ancient. If you think the first half was wild, wait until you see what's next. These are the pub snacks that were banned, reinvented, or quietly vanished because modern Britain couldn't handle them. Brace yourself. At number 7, we have the majestic, the misunderstood, the mighty mushy pea. Now, before you picture a green smear next to a battered cod, stop right there. This wasn't your chip shop side dish. This was the pub edition, served piping hot in a thick ceramic mug, often with a sturdy spoon standing bolt upright in the middle, a testament to its formidable density. It was a proper, hearty, warming mouthful of green goodness. This was a northern staple, a pint's best friend on a cold, damp Tuesday evening. It was simple, unpretentious, and utterly satisfying. But as the big pub chains began their relentless march across the country, homogenizing every quirky corner into a familiar shade of beige, the humble mug of peas was deemed too northern, perhaps. It didn't fit the laminated, microwave-friendly menus. And just like that, a tradition quietly dissolved, leaving only the memory of its comforting warmth. Next, at number 8, the glorious, greasy, and undeniably questionable sausage roll. We're not talking about the delicate artisan creations you see today. Oh no. We're talking about those heavy, flaky, vaguely meaty cylinders that sat sweating gently under the orange glow of a heated cabinet, sometimes for hours, sometimes perhaps for days. You'd point, the landlord would fish one out with a pair of tongs, and you'd get this wonderfully hefty parcel of pastry. Was the filling 100% prime pork? Almost certainly not. It was a mystery, a delicious, peppery, crumbly enigma wrapped in layers of golden, flaky pastry that would shatter and cascade down your front with the first bite. But then came the crackdown. The Health and Safety Brigade, with their clipboards and their thermometers, declared those magical warming cabinets a public menace. And with their demise, the soul of the pub sausage roll seemed to vanish. The magic, it turned out, was in the waiting. And then, at number 9, we have the Ploughman's Lunch, a dish that sounds as ancient and rooted in British soil as Stonehenge itself. You can just picture a weary farmhand, centuries ago, sitting under an oak tree with his hunk of cheddar, a crusty loaf, and a pickled onion. Except, it's all a brilliant fib. The Ploughman's Lunch, as we know it, was actually invented in the 1960s. It was a marketing masterstroke by the Milk Marketing Board to shift more British cheese. And my word, did it work. For decades, it was the king of the pub lunch menu. A glorious, unpretentious platter of cheese, bread, pickle, maybe a slice of ham and a token salad leaf. It was a meal that didn't require a chef, just an assembler. But then the microwave arrived, promising hot meals in minutes. The humble, honest Ploughman's, with its cold, straightforward charm, simply couldn't compete with the siren call of a microwaved lasagna. And so, a tradition, albeit a manufactured one, began its slow fade from the blackboard. At number 10, we salute the pickled onion. Not the sweet, silvery little cocktail onions you find in fancy jars today. No, we are talking about the proper pub counter pickled onion, those huge, eye-watering globes that sat ominously in a great big jar of murky brown malt vinegar on the bar top. They were less a snack, more a challenge, an act of culinary bravado. Taking a bite was an experience of nuclear intensity. The initial crunch, followed by a wave of acidity so potent it felt like it could strip paint. They cleared your sinuses, they could clear a room, and local legend had it they could probably deter small rodents from the cellar. Finding a proper face-melting malt vinegar-soaked onion today is a near impossible quest. They have been tamed, sweetened, and civilized into submission. And honestly, it's a bit of a tragedy. Coming in at number 11, a true survivor, a masterpiece of modern food science, Scampi fries. Those little fluorescent orange puffs, shaped vaguely like a piece of scampi, that somehow managed to taste overwhelmingly of seafood, despite containing absolutely no seafood whatsoever. It's a chemical miracle, a triumph of flavor engineering. They leave a fine orange dust on your fingers that is impossible to remove, a badge of honor for anyone who has indulged. While other snacks have fallen by the wayside, defeated by health trends or changing tastes, the Scampi fry has endured. It clings on, a salty, fishy, bafflingly delicious relic of a bygone era, proving that sometimes you just can't beat artificial flavoring. And finally, at number 12, we have a true icon, the undisputed king of the pub table. KP Nuts, specifically, the dry roasted variety in their regal blue bags. These weren't just a snack. They were part of the pub's furniture. A packet of these, torn open and placed in the middle of the table, was a silent invitation to share, to chat, to linger just a little bit longer. The magic was in that secret, powdery coating. A complex alchemical blend of salt, a generous hit of MSG, and a secret mix of over 20 spices that coated your fingers and tongue in a savory dust that was utterly addictive. You'd tell yourself you were just having a few, but before you knew it, you were tipping the empty packet up to your mouth to get the last precious crumbs. They are the taste of a proper pint, of good conversation, and of an evening well spent. A true pub legend. If you loved this deep dive into forgotten British pub culture, hit subscribe. Because next week we're revealing the pub meals that were banned, reborn, and secretly rebranded through history.